G'day, all you wonderful people. Welcome again to your Monday. It's lovely to be here with you. I'm feeling fresh. How are you feeling? I noticed some of you in the chat already talking shit about Dispossessed, so we're obviously in the right place on the right day. That's always good. 100% dwarf cannons everywhere, maybe in your corn, more DACA. If you had some dwarf cannons in your corn, then, I don't know, maybe your cannons might learn how to operate in a proper fashion and be, not hot shit. Look, we've got lots to talk about today. Hey, everyone in the chat, good to see you. Hypnocracken, wonderful. Tab, Elf Bro, my God, there's just so many of you already. I love you all you gorgeous people. Is anyone celebrating a subscription milestone? Because I always do love to have a chat about our hobby babies and how far along they are. I know some of us have had a couple of hobby babies, some of us it's still just gestating, but it's lovely to be here with all of you. Oh shit, I haven't even poured myself a drink yet, so if you'll just be patient with me for 30 seconds, I'm just quickly going to make that, fix that. I am so sorry. I'm not even starting with a drink. Clearly we're behind the 8 ball today. That's okay. I was trying to catch a little bit of the basketball before we came in here, which I think is possibly the reason that we're not going to see many Canadians in the chat. If you are, that's it. Oh my gosh, Elfbro, we've just had our first baby. We just had our first little hobby baby, 9 months. It came out with a big head because obviously I have a large dome. Well, look, man, I'm so sorry that I wasn't there for the childbirth process. What should we name our hobby baby? Just out of curiosity, because obviously it needs a child name. I'm thinking something along the lines of like maybe Shido, something easy and easy to remember, easy to yell out. So g'day to all of our subscribers, anyone who's Patreon, anyone who helps us out any way you can, anyone who threw in money for the cameras a couple of weeks back. You're all fucking legends, or whether you're listening to this back when it finally gets put onto the podcast stream when I pull my fucking finger out. Yes. The Gnome's Bane, can we all take a minute to appreciate the Firebelly Merc detachments? Yes, so I love the Firebelly model, and I have all of the Maneater models because I absolutely adore them. When they brought them out in res, and I was like, fuck yes, because I tried to do one in metal and I hated my goddamn life. So I've got them all, built them all, and I am absolutely stoked to see that. But to be honest with you, and we will have a little chat about Mercenaries in just a little bit, but I was really excited for Mercenaries to be like the very mercenary group. So like potentially like a crossbow armored orcs, like Ruglugs armored orcs, or a unit, like that kind of thing. I was excited, or set like locked in war scrolls, like 2 units of man-eaters and a tyrant to lead them, or something like that, or just 2 units of man-eaters, set merc detachments. Being able to choose them is a little bit weird for me. That's cool, but the fact that like the Firebelly has not seen play. Has anyone in the chat used a Firebelly ever? Just ever? Because I put it to you that no one has, because his spells for shit, he's overpointed, and he's an ally. Jesus, you're better. Like, a Butcher is the same or less points and heaps better. So no one takes the Firebelly. I like that you have to take the Firebelly to take the Merc detachment. That's just fucking great. It's kind of like and then like that one's really shithouse, but then the Flesh Eater Courts one is like, just have anything but dragons. It's awesome. Dwarven Artillery batteries, I like that. I like a whole lot of it. But yeah, let's be honest, I think, and we will have a chat about it soon, I'm not entirely sure what mercs are going to look like in competitive play, and obviously that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Gorelord, what's up, man? Nice to see you. I just cut out the WSD and go straight for the Gorelord. So, but you might be the D Gorelord, in which case I don't want to take the D out of you. I want to put that D back into you. Yeah, I heard myself just now. The army's being much defined by what they lack is what they do. Yeah, I dig that, Tab. I like it. Jameson and ginger ale, Marty. Nice. Okay, I dig it. I'm currently on spiced rum, so I'm just drinking back Sailor Jerry's, but I dig it. Jameson and ginger ale's a beautiful thing. Oh shit, I missed a bit in the chat there. Delph unsupervised. Dad Hammer, lovely to see you. It's a fresh hobby marker. Yep, good, good. Dad Hammer, good to see you because you'll probably pull me up on any law shit that I get wrong, and I do need that. Um, more Daka pointing out that man eaters, like any of the ogre models in resin, aren't as effective as a weapon as they used to be, because they used to be literally like small, like fist-sized blunderbuss cannonballs. It was awesome. Just went in. Gut busters. Okay, with a unit of iron guts, nice. Put a spell around. Yeah, that's true. He's got it. His spells are alright, but yeah, I think conversions are amazing. Oh, sorry, you can ally in for the dragons for the Flesh Eater Courts, just not anyone on a mount. Great. Because if we do one thing that's busted, everything can have something busted. Oh, and you know what's going to help? If I even attach that microphone right there, how does that sound? Does that sound a little bit better? Because I just realized that in my hurry to make myself a drink, I forgot to actually attach the microphone. I had my priorities in order. Obviously, the priority is get a drink, and followed by microphone. We got lots to move through, lots to talk about today. And let's be honest, there's probably a much more important game of basketball happening over in Toronto. But the first thing that we will start with, as is tradition, I guess, as is tradition, maybe the way to put it. I don't know. If I can figure out how to make it all work over here. Maybe not. Where are you? There we go. Sorry, I'm just quickly pulling a couple of bits and pieces here to make them work. Beautiful. So we are going to start, as always, since the last little while, with my favourite new segment, and one that I have been told I should probably not do all the time, which is, that's fine. Everybody can choose how they want, and let's just be free and lovely spirits, but let's embrace this lovely little segment that we've all come to know and love. Send nudes, nice unique drawings everyone scribbled. Now, I've had a number of good things come to me. Now, I'm gonna put this out there. I love everything y'all are doing. It makes me really happy, makes me feel really special and loved. However, the obvious amount of dicks has to go down. I can't have them on my wall. I can't constantly be putting them on the stream. So I love you all, and I would really, really like to see just as many creative ways of inserting penises and then sending them to me. That's very terrifying, but it can't be that obvious. Think like the Little Mermaid. The box art for the Little Mermaid where they snuck a penis in there. If you've never heard of that or seen that, Google it. That's the one to do it. But yes, if you want to send that, I am happy to receive. However, you do have to tame it down. This week I got 3. I got 3 with Microsoft Paint drawn penises, and just not even like suggestive or hidden in something. At least give it like a beard and have it holding an axe and a shield, so I can at least pretend that it's a Chaos Dwarf. However, what if they're tasteful? Tasteful is probably tasteful, or concealed is okay. All right, so. The one I do have to share for today, and I'm flying solo today, so we will have to. I'll turn to the chat. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna go in the chat now. Gnomes Bane, I'm gonna go you. You're just randomly. You were the first name that I saw pop up in the chat. I'd like your review on this picture. You're gonna be our art critic for today. So, the image that I have is it's a Photoshop job. I won't lie, it's a Photoshop job. And it's a bit of a mess. It's had, that's a mistake. All right, so, it's got some good qualities. Now, it's a Photoshop job that was taken, as we can see, from Monday the 10th of December, which would have been during the Bobo coverage, I believe. And what we have here, we've got a hint of Nathan in the background. A lot of Jet's anus. just a lot of Jet's bum sitting in there. And then his picture, and then me mounting the edge of the frame. That's what we've got. So there's a lot there. There's a lot to unpack. It's Gnomes Bane, solid. Okay, see, I like it. I like that the image here. It's obviously has me looking directly into the dog's rectum. And I feel like the artist was aware of what they were doing and were very excited to create this kind of like eye line into the pert dog's bumhole. So Gnomes Bane, as our art critic for today, what would you give it out of 10? Your score is obviously important. An 8.5 out of 13. Okay. Then because the rest was scored, you know what? Fuck it. The rest was scored out of 10. I don't care. Where are we? Let me just get out there. You know what? Yeah, and today we're out of 13. That's fine. We're an 8.5 out of 13. Thank you very much, Gnomes Bane, for your service. Elf Bro, I do have the other pictures that you sent me, and they will come, but I obviously couldn't drop all of your beautiful art straight up. Oh man, Arkahan, we've had like, Jesus, we're almost up to our third hobby baby. Well, no, we've had two. We've had a solid 2 hobby babies, because that would obviously take 18 months, and we're working on hobby baby number 3, which I'm very excited about. They always say that, third time's the charm. So if our first couple of hobby babies didn't work, obviously hobby baby number 3 is just going to be an absolute blinder. Now that out of the way, we've sent our nudes. Thank you to everybody who has sent them in, and I will just reiterate: if you are going to send me Microsoft Paint drawn penises, at least Warhammer related, just in some way, shape, or form, would be great. Because I'm not just gonna do that. What's cracking, mate? We're talking about a lot of stuff. We've just finished talking about nudes, and now obviously the scandal. Like, can we have a moment for scandal? Like, I know that we've obviously got g'day, Mr. McGrath. We've obviously got a lot of important things to talk about. We have so many important things to talk about. However, before we talk about important things, there is some scandal, and I fucking love scandal because I'm a messy bitch who loves drama. Anyone who recognizes that quote and knows where it's from, credit to you. So the scandal that we have that we've kind of got to talk about is obviously the no paint scandal. Now there was paint. Paint was released. Now the paint's gone. There's not enough paint. It's all sold out. Over here, I'm pretty sure 5 colors were sold out before 11 a.m. or midday on the Saturday of release. So the set, if you wanted them all, sold out like that. People trying to get them, it's next to impossible. Now I'm not sure if that means that trade also doesn't have any. I know that stores are going to get a limited supply. And I mean, like, some people have been real quick to point the finger at Games Workshop and be like, yo, what the fuck? How could you do this? How could you have such a big launch and not get it right? But the thing that I reckon we should maybe just quickly talk about is the fact that they did all of this, but they've launched a paint line where arguably you could say it's paint. How could you release so underproduced? Which I agree, right? If you are going to hype up a product and get it really excited, then you really should be able to provide. And I know a couple of people who got like the full collection, and they're like a pig in shit right now, right? They got it all, they got everything they needed. And yes, I do think that for one thing, on one side, it's like, oh shit, the fact that they obviously did not meet anywhere near demand. But let's stop for a second and think about what that means, right? Like, previously, when things sell out, it's because they're either like a limited edition, they're very, very like suspended release, like there's not much coming out of them. Like the things that sell out are usually in that vein. Or it's like a release of a product like a battle tome that they don't predict. but here's the thing that I'm stoked about, right? The fact that for the first time, I don't know, correct me in the chat if you know of it, we've seen Games Workshop sell out of fucking paint. Like a release that was so big that the paint itself is all sold out. I think, like, personally, I think that's amazing. And what I'm really excited about is for what that speaks to the hobby, because we, all the time, it's about gaming, right? We sell out because we want to get the new battle tome, or everybody wants to get the new army, or everyone knows Daughters of Cain are fucked, and so they feel like they'll jump train onto Daughters of Cain. For the first time, we're seeing a sellout based on getting our armies painted and on the table. Now, I know for me, that's always one of the slowest processes. And it's, for a lot of people, painting is kind of like a necessary evil that they have to do because they love the gaming, they love or whatnot. But I'm just stoked for it. And look, I agree, Blaze Be Mad could be to be able to go to shareholders and say we sold out, could be to create a small thing. I think my worry is that we might think along those lines. Let's remember that the contrast paints are probably a massive fucking investment. And everything is, right? Every time you do it. So to see them sell out and like the justification, all I see is that hopefully we're going to get expanded. They're going to keep expanding paint ranges. They're going to keep putting stuff into it. Pray, everyone, let's just pray together that they put them in fucking dropper bottles at some point. Christ almighty, that would be a just about a religious experience. But I cannot fault them for trying this. The fault maybe is in not meeting it, but I can understand why they're a little bit hesitant to do it. Salathon, yeah, I've heard of a number of like stores that are holding a couple back for people who couldn't meet it. The fact they spent 3 months hyping them, but they didn't. Okay, so HypnoKraken, you also need to compare the paint, the taste of the paints, as to comparing normal paints. Now, I got to spend a little time with the contrast paints over the weekend. They're really cool. I dig them. I'm really excited to use them. I think they will, like, HypnoKraken will get to taste at the end because I did taste. I did sample. Now, the thing that I think we need to take with a grain of salt is that these paints are different to your regular paints. Archahand, we're not officially condoning anything yet. I promise I'll get there. But they are, now, again, in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, they're a resin paint. They aren't a water-based acrylic like the previous, which means that you can't mix them with water. You don't want water on your brush, and that's why they're releasing a contrast medium, because a resin-based paint is very different to a water-based acrylic. Now, I did not read the bottle. Don't know if it's non-toxic or whether it's potentially toxic. Guessing that if it's a resin-based paint, there's probably something not great in there that we shouldn't be putting into our bodies. People in the chat, you are right. Like, they hyped it up for like 3 to 6 months and then didn't have it. Everyone, you only had a small taste, Salathon. Fair enough. Blaze Be Mad. I think there is a large amount of people who don't use Games Workshop paints, not because of the paint at all, but because of the bottle that it comes in. And as somebody who, I use Games Workshop paints, I really like them. I like the way they structure their colors. They're the ones I learnt with, so they're the ones I paint with, and I don't think I don't necessarily think they're better or worse. They're just safe, and they're what I know. But 100%, I think there are a lot of people who do go to other paint systems just for the bottle, and I completely understand that. Another thing Gorlord pointing out, another thing to consider, they're made in Nottingham. There's a new facility, a new factory that's been opened with double the capacity. Whether that's completely functional yet, whether they're doing that, who knows. Grixty, just saw you in the chat, mate. Good to see you on your lunch break. Just good to catch you just for the little Tuesday lunch break. I mean, Tuesday where you are, Monday where I am, but that's okay. We're all together in the hobby world, and the mortal realms are fucking confusing, so who knows what time it is there. I did taste it. Dadhammer pointing out that it is toxic, which means that I should not have tasted it. We will talk about the flavor in just a second, but I will point out, usually we joke, don't drink your paints. Drink your other paints. They're fine. They're non-toxic. Do not drink resin-based paint. It is toxic. You shouldn't drink that. But let's be honest, massive big one. Gonna check. Okay, right. Welfare in the chat. Gonna go check them out on your lunch break. I'd recommend giving them a go. I find them really cool. I loved using them. However, I will say it's going to require a different style of painting to what we're used to. They're consistency-wise, for those who haven't got a hand to them, they're slightly thicker than if you think about the Hexwraith Flame and the Nighthaunt Gloom paints. They're slightly thicker, but a similar vibe. They're thinned for drinking, 100% not. There's a lot of hate in there being a resin-based paint. That's okay. Gnomespan, I can't fault you there. I'm terrified that that's where the chat's going, but yeah, I can't fault superpowers get their powers from radiation and blah, blah, blah. Maybe if I was to drink a whole cup of resin-based paint, I would get some kind of weird resin or paint power. Oh gosh, no. The chat's going to a dark place. Yeah, wow. Okay, yes, it's intense. We've all apparently painted our insides just about as much as we painted our models. However, as I was saying, the contrast paints require a slightly different style of painting. They're quite runny, so you've got to be careful not to get them in the wrong place. You also, one thing that I noticed having a bit of a play with them, once they're in place, they have a relatively short time once they hit the model to play and position in the right spot before, if you touch it again, you start to cause things like, because they're a resin-based, little air bubbles can form, which means that as it dries, those pop, leaving like these really stark and obvious marks where the undercoat was not covered. It's interesting. Oh gosh, someone chewing green stuff to mix it. Matt Bashby just wanting models painted regardless of what it's made out of, rat poison or gasoline. Oh, great. However, the thing that I do love and the thing that I really like was getting a use of them. Like, I put down a few different colors, played with a few different combos, and all of them just like that really quickly pushed armies through. Now, I can see that all those people who struggle to get armies together for tournaments or people painting their first couple of armies, this is a spectacular tool. I can't wait to use it myself. It's not necessarily going to replace any elements of my painting, but it's going to make it more efficient, which I think is kind of cool. I won't get and I think for someone who is a moderate painter, which I would say describes myself and a lot of the people I play with, the contrast paints aren't going to make my painting necessarily better immediately, but what it'll do is I'll spend the same amount of time painting as I always have. I'll just get more out of it and I'll have more rewards, and my army will look better because of it. Because Arkahan, back to work, take it easy, mate. DNX82, welcome, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Have fun, Arkahan, enjoy work. But I think the contrasts are gonna be useful for doing that for, say, myself. Because I'll still spend, the thing I notice is I spend roughly the same amount of time painting my armies no matter what they are. And the better I get, it just means the more time I put into them. But it's like I have like I just can't paint forever. I get to check out, I'm like, nah, can't do this anymore. Or that's enough time on that model, and I just know it. Where's my drink? My drink's here. My drink's here. I started the show without it. I have a drink. I'm so sorry that I let everyone down. But yeah, cheers. Bawi, Grana, Wheat, Mini Bong. So the contrast paints, I think they're going to do that. They're going to let me paint the same amount of time, but get things done. And yes, black, white, and flesh, 100%. I played around with the contrast in black and grey, and it is amazing. It's awesome. I think they're going to save so much time, and they're actually probably going to encourage, I think, edge highlighting a lot more. Because once you've hit stuff, I hit a bunch of things with just a contrast and then an edge highlight, and they looked amazing. It was like a two-step. So then I played around with like contrast, a little bit of shade to get like more dynamic kind of fades in there, and then an edge highlight, and it looked awesome as well. So I honestly think there's a lot of usability with contrast paints. I can't wait to see where they go, but I really like them. between Death Daughters and Skaven, which is the most fucked up in the new General's Handbook? I assume all of them. Beast Claw Raiders are the worst though. Beast Claw Raiders players are fucked. They're way overpowered, and they obviously only play Beast Claw Raiders because they're top tier. Joel McGrath. Actually, you were Joel. Were you at BadgerCon or Sydney Slaughter? Because both of those events, I imagine, were heavily intoxicated. So whichever event you were at, I imagine that you feel like you need to, I don't know, that nothing can harm you. And that's fair. After the amount of alcohol that Australians imbibe in those kind of places, nothing can harm you. Yeah, the contrast is the same. Yeah, Army Painted Dips, that's kind of where they go for it, and I really dig. Skaven will get their points adjusted. I'm praying that Flesh Eater Courts... Skaven only need a little bit of points adjusting, and I think they're fine. Flesh Eater Courts need either heavy points adjusting or some major rules changes, which we have seen before. Let's not remember Caradron Overlords for the Thunderers got a total switch in their War Scroll between General's Handbooks, so that's potentially it as well. So for those who have been wondering, the taste of the contrast paints. First of all, don't taste them. They are toxic. It's a resin-based paint. Don't taste them. You should not put those colors in your body. Also, like if it's gonna fade, we don't want that. Don't drink contrast paints. I tasted them so that we don't have to, and they taste bad. Like it's not good. It's like the gift that keeps on hating. Jimmy 1080, 100 better than Jimmy 980. Good to see you. Vanilla Just Ass, Alex, good to see you as well. Bro, yeah, okay. Joel McGrath was close to home, which is probably why BadgerCon was so dangerous. Nemesis is in. You guys are probably late because the basketball was happening. Yeah, the new contrast paints should not be consumed. I guess the thing is as well for them, when you might be cleaning your brush in water, that's super cool. You can do that, but you will then want to dry your brush before you put it back in your paint. So there's really no reason to drink that water. Just again, gonna put it out there. Contrast paints are toxic. I've drank a lot of other paint in my time, and I'm recognizing that I'm gonna have to be real careful with contrast paints because they're a resin-based paint. Don't put it in your business. That's bad. However, if you were to do that, Blades Be Mad, you go wherever you need to be. Blitzed, yeah, you're 100% right, mate. If they made things that were delicious toxic paints, we'd be in a lot of trouble. But basically, the big one that I'm going to put out there is that they don't taste good. Like regular paints taste like funny bad, and you can be like, I accidentally drank 2 pots of Agrax, which I did on a bet because I lost a game at a tournament once. I was very drunk at the time, so I don't really think I tasted it. My pee went a really weird color though. Now I will say that medium is just gin. That's all it is. But the contrast paints, it's sharp. It's like what it tastes like is, you know, if you get stuff on your hands cleaning and then touch like your eye on your mouth without noticing it, and you're like, Jesus, what's that? That's what the contrast paints taste like. I can't give them and not even like it's just like it's like concentrated evil touched your tongue. So don't do it. I've done it for us. Contrast paints must be great because the taste is shithouse. And let's be honest, they always say, you know, like the worse the medicine tastes, the better it is for you. So clearly the worse the paint tastes, the better the paint is for you. Someone just clip that, put that little bit on Twitter, and Games Workshop can use that for their advertising for it. You know, they taste so bad, they've got to be good paints. A few people dropping in just on the halftime in the game. If I could get a quick update on the score, that'd be great. Since being here, I'm going to piss all of the Canadians off in the chat. But the first loveliest people to kind of take me under my wing were these tourists. They were a retired Southern American family. They decided to take me in. They sat me down and I watched a game of basketball with them, and they were Golden State Warriors fans. So unfortunately, I am a Warriors fan because they told me to. Can I recommend some mixes for the paints? The mixes that I'd recommend for the paints 100% have to do with not having a funny color when you pee, or if you are going to have a funny color when you pee, not attributing it to the paint. So if you were to be drinking shots of shades, I'd probably say the best mixer for those is going to be something really strongly colored. Now in that sense, I'm thinking like a strong juice. Like let's talk like beet juice, like beetroot juice, maybe pickle juice. And you're definitely going to want to eat some asparagus in there so that you don't notice the smell and you can attribute it to the asparagus and not the damage the paint is doing to your insides. Contrast old fashioned, hilarious idea. Again, don't drink contrast paints. At the moment we're not looking great for the Warriors, which is devastating. But that's okay because then I can just jump on the bandwagon and say that I've been a Raptors fan this whole time, and then everything's fine. Yeah, Gnomes Bane, 100%. This is the kind of discussion that we have on this show. I recognize that a lot of people watched the earlier show with Rob before that has a lot of very in-depth tactical conversation. We have a little bit about this. But this, right now, we are dealing with the flavor, taste, and flavor profiles of the contrast paints compared to the other ones. Now, I will say that there is a taste difference between base paints and edge paints. The metallic metals, like the white lid metals, you should not consume. In fact, most of the metallic paints you should probably not consume. But if you do, they leave a little bit of a gritty taste in your mouth, which is probably the metal. Again, don't consume paint ever, especially not contrast paint. But the other, I guess, big thing that I dug about the contrast paints was how quickly you can cover that up. Like if you make a mistake, so easy to just put a line of the base back over it and repaint it. I played around with it with 3 of the different colors, with the Athematic blue, the red, the 40k reference chapter red, blood something red, gore red, whatever the hell it is. But basically, and every single one of them that I tried, I basically painted them in the color, and then I put a splotch of the base paint back over the top. Once it dried, painted in the contrast again, and it's fucking seamless. So for somebody who sometimes tends to have a drink and then paints his models, that's going to be amazing, and I'm really excited for that. Look, it's just Retributor armor, 100%. It's Goldschlager. It cuts up your insides so the alcohol gets in faster, which means that you have a more crazy night, and then you have to be drunk to be able to relive the night. Blaze Be Mad. Yeah, 100%. I have done some damage to my insides, and if any woman is ever unlucky enough to bear the fruit of my loins, our children will come up in a fucked up array of colors, but I will still love them all because I can train them to fight for me and be my tiny army of thieves, which I think is going to be great. Just quietly, I am very excited about all of the hobby babies that I am having with all of you, because I can't wait until they're old enough to start dating and I can mess with their boyfriends. I'm going to be a real protective hobby baby dad for what it's worth. They're all my baby chicks. But that's enough about paint. Vanilla just asks, oh mate, Alex, 4 months. I'm almost starting to show, babe. It's going to be real good. It's going to be real special. We can call it Superfly. Now, that's it for paint. Unless anyone has any last burning questions about contrast paint, I don't have a lot of answers. But I really liked working with them. I think they, like I said though, if you have painted before, the contrast paints are going to require a different style of painting, meaning that to use them, you've got to get a little bit more creative, got to get a little bit more fun. And like the drag and practice. It's going to take a bit more practice. So I would say don't start slapping contrast paint directly onto your favorite centerpiece model the second you get them. Practice a little bit on some models you don't care about. It's not hard, but it's different to regular painting, and it'll just require a bit of know-how before we jump right in. Now, the next thing that we're going to talk about. We are going to be talking a little bit about the GHB. And with a discussion about the GHB, let's just bring this one up so that we can all take a moment and go, let's not panic. Now, the last 2 times a GHB has been released, people have acted like the sky is fucking falling, and they have had just a big old hissy fit, problems with things that are changing, things that are going to come out, all the things that they're scared of. I remember when command points and command abilities were announced and how those were changed and worked, and people were like, it's going to ruin the game. And if you then tried to talk to them and be like, well, maybe we should try this before we hate it. And everyone just absolutely lost their shit. So let's take this conversation about it with a grain of salt and be like, let's be okay. Jimmy 1080 better than Jimmy 980. I wasn't worried, but you saying don't panic makes me feel like I should be. Well, look, yeah, and of course, anyone who's a WAR command point spammer would love the way that they've gone down. But let's just remember, change is good. There's nothing stopping things being changed back. There's nothing stop us ignoring changes. To give an example, the mercenary system, which was much talked about and released in Forbidden Power. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm going to slide out of frame just for a second while I fetch my Forbidden Power book. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the mercenary section doesn't specifically state that it's designed for matched play. Or it doesn't necessarily say that it's added to match play. It basically just says that it can be employed by your army. You pick a mercenary company. They gain all of these rules, but nowhere does it actually say that it's matched play official. It's just rules. We're given rules that we can use, and that's wonderful because having rules that we can use is a really good thing. Also, if anyone has any questions, got the book right here. I can answer them for you. But the cool thing I think about them is they offer a little bit of rules for the people who like looking at it. And so that's Forbidden Power. That's Forbidden Power. Sorry, I realized that might not have. That's that one. I don't have a copy of the new General's Handbook. If I did, fuck, I wouldn't be talking to you. I'd be like consuming it to get all of its knowledge and power. But the Forbidden Power stuff with mercenaries, nowhere did it say officially this is matched play official, this is all of that and all of that kind of stuff. I could get Dasa out of here when we don't have the 2019 book. 100% fair, I'd be gone too. Nowhere does it say it's match play official. Now, a whole lot in the community post today, they've said that the mercenary system is majoritively for narrative play, which it kind of already was. Like narrative play, you could already do what you wanted. However, I dig that now mercenary companies have their own particular rules, so it brings a bit more structure to narrative play, which I think is good because it's fun when you've got a world to build a narrative in, as opposed to just being like, just do whatever the fuck you want and justify it in hindsight. That's totally fine. So I actually like that because you can go, I can smartly build my army for a narrative game. So yeah, I'm about it. I like it. I think it's really cool. Yeah, people rocking up and ignoring the point changes. I want someone to leak the GHB point changes so bad. Please, if I ever wanted to leak. Yeah, but let's be honest, whether we find out the GHB point changes now or in a week and a half's time, like I always feel this way, right? I always feel like, God, I want to know what the GHB changes are going to be. And then they happen and I'm like, oh, yeah, cool. Okay. It's more just that excitement. It's like the release of a movie. If you saw it a week earlier or a week later, your experience of the movie is completely the same thing. But because we know it's coming and we have a time frame for it, we knew it was coming around this time, right? Like, this General's Handbook, nobody's been like, holy shit, did you notice that they released a General's Handbook in the middle of the year? Fuck off. Middle of the year. Yeah, I know, never done it before. Usually they release it around December. So, like, we all knew it was coming. So it's not that it's exactly like we're like, oh, I need it now. They've been holding out for so long. It's just like now that there's a date to it, suddenly I hate that I have to wait. So I'm right there with you. But more so for me, the points isn't what I want to see. I really want to see the new battle plans. I'm like, point changes come and go, armies come and go, but for me, the thing that I always get excited about is what missions, what battle plans we're going to be playing for the next like year or so, or what the new ones are that's going to shake shit up, and so I really like them. But the Dad Hammer looking for a point decrease on Scourge Privateers. I don't know how cheap they can possibly make them before you win a game. Maybe if your models are like 0 points, you could get... No, actually, Scourge Privateers aren't bad. You're doing okay with them. They don't probably need too much. Just a bee's dick and they'll be in. I'd love to see, not Hydras, the Charybdises become awesome because they're such a cool model. Jimmy 1080, 100 better than Jimmy 980. Castle Assault in November has already said the effects of Forbidden Power will need to be reviewed before... Yeah, and I think that's awesome. I think Forbidden Power is... Hopefully Forbidden Power is the lesson that we should have learnt with Malign Sorcery, that's not everything that's included in an expansion box is an expansion that you have to do, right? Like, the spells are the new endless spells that you are added to the endless spell range, which is in the core rules. However, everything else in Malign Sorcery, the realms, the realm spells, the realm artifacts, that was an expansion that we can choose. Forbidden Power is the same. What we have are new endless spells, which are a part of the core range because of what they are. Then we have some new terrain piece, the Penumbral Engine, which has points. I love that. I love that its buff isn't great and it's 100 points because fucking any more faff and shit on the battlefield we don't need freely. I like that idea. I hope that armies will have to start paying points for their terrain piece, or like Deepkin, they pay 50 points per ship if they want to take ships. I think it's awesome. Anyway, but yes, it's an expansion. You can choose whether to take it or not. Also, Jimmy 1080, can you let me know, is this the first year that Castle Assault's gone Age of Sigmar? I know it used to be a big Warhammer Fantasy, and then I think it was a big 9th Age tournament. So it sounds like for the first time they're swinging some Age of Sigmar, which sounds really awesome. That's Newcastle, Australia, for the record, not Newcastle in England. But yeah. Dasa, okay, new GHB, new army, definitely. Blaze Be Mad, you got a tournament July 14, so you need it. Nice. Sneaky Stabber, one Sneaky Stabber coming in. The anticipation is 100% huge. You'll see new Better Part of Valor. Yeah, the Better Part of Valor just fucking needs a huge change. I love that. Just back to back, people are like, I don't like this mission. It's like, yeah. I dig also the fact that they're focusing on smaller stuff. Chariots. Chariots 2. Yeah, true. Make Archaon. Just give Archaon Ren 2. That's all he needs. Ren 2 on Archaon and that's it. Blitz talking about army-specific terrain for armies that don't have them. I agree. Actually, that'd be really cool. Or if there was like a generic, if you don't have a terrain piece, a generic order terrain piece, a generic destruction terrain piece, like that would be also cool as well. However, I want people to have to pay for them. If you get like a Deepkin ship, right? You can put down one ship split into two, or one ship, or two ships, right? That's what the Deepkin can do. Correct me, Deepkin players, if I'm wrong. So I always think that that's kind of fucked, right? That for free, the more you spend, the more you get. Which I guess is kind of like Sylvaneth Wildwoods. But I just feel like the amount of effect that some of those, and the amount of terrain that they can block is pretty useful. So yeah, Dad Hammer commenting, hoping that they're changing points in terrain because they kind of mention it together. They were probably like Frigo and Seraphon stuff. Yeah, so they're talking about updates for a lot of the smaller allegiances. Well, not even model smaller, but the ones that haven't gotten books yet, which would be really cool. Jimmy 1080, it's the first Castle Assault for Age of Sigmar. Yeah, wicked. Okay, so that's awesome. So Castle Assault, for those who don't know, is a very long-running Australian tournament on the east coast, just above a couple of hours north of Sydney. But yeah, that's it. Let's have a... Oh God, I'm empty. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Please give me a moment just while we top up, because obviously we can't be going empty of alcohol in any way, shape, or form, because it's the wrong show to be sober in. But the General's Handbook, not far away. We're probably going to start seeing point changes and leaks and updates and everything. There's also going to be expanded command abilities, which I'm pretty excited for. I think more generic command abilities would be really cool. I hope they don't have a big effect. I just want them to be things that are like small tactical decisions. Would be really lovely. This might make a bit of noise. I don't know. So we've seen a bunch of new like updates to the General's Handbook, then lead to a battle tome, which Dad Hammer just commented. Yeah, so we might see that's kind of it reveals where we're going. But then again, I'd like to see more new armies as well, along the lines of Deepkin, which we probably will. So we've probably got some cool stuff coming. Now that all of the Chaos Gods have gotten their own shit, and Chaos Dwarves obviously are fake dwarves, so they don't matter. But yeah, I'm really excited. I just again want to flag this. This was obviously in the community site today. I think it's real telling of where they're going. Like the Mercenaries thing saying that it's primarily for narrative play, which means it is up to tournament organizers to decide. Your TOs get to choose whether they want to include the mercenary system or not. Some will, some won't. I am not a huge fan, only because for me it kind of breaks it a little bit. I don't think in a tournament setting is the right, like the idea behind mercenaries for me is narrative. So a tournament setting is an easy place for people to take what is a narrative offer and create some bullshit storyline behind taking a fucking overpowered army or something with more summoning or all of that shit. So yeah, I dig it. However, that's it. That's that kind of stuff that we've got to talk. And now we're gonna have a super quick chat with. Oh shit! Sorry, missed a few things in there. Question from Mark Chan. Some of the competitive people asking for Grant GHB tournament on June 29 in America. Well, okay. 1 week for people to build lists and adjust points. Yeah, look, I gotta say that's tight. If it's June 29, that means that its release is June 21, June 22. I personally am, as much as I love change, I'm a big supporter of the idea that we should always have like time for stuff to be reviewed. So, for example, if a battle plan is busted, it's really hard to do. Which usually they say there's a 2-week FAQ on all battle tomes. I would personally kind of be the same with the new General's Handbook. I would probably be more looking at it as an opportunity to say goodbye to the GHB 2018 rather than a first cab off the ranks for the GHB 2019. While it seems like a fun concept, in practice that means as a TO they're going to be copying question after question about unspecified shit. There'll be new things that'll come out, and really for me that means the tournament's going to be more about who can not have work for a week and play a ton of games to learn the rules specifically, or who can convince their opponent that they know how a rule should be played as opposed to what it actually is. So while I'm all for getting new stuff out as fast as we can and into the tournament scene as fast as we can, that one feels a little bit too tight for me. I would probably say go GHB 2018, but then again, everyone's up to their own thing, and it's up to people to decide with their wallets where they want to go, how they want to support, what they want from things. So yeah, that's kind of it. Yeah. The other thing I would say is that means everyone who comes to the event has to be able to get access to the book on day. Now, if it sells out, or if people they've spent ages building their army, they bought their ticket, and now suddenly they need to buy another book to be able to play, seems like a bit rough. But yeah, Jimmy 1080, where's Andy? I'm just flying solo today, but getting him back on in the next couple of weeks because we've got a few new things to chat about. But yeah, Dad Hammer, 100%, that's my vibe. There should be a cooling period for all books. When they say that there's a 2-week FAQ on most things, now sometimes it's 3, if I was running a tournament and if I was the TO, I wouldn't allow any army book or anything to be taken that hadn't had an FAQ released for it. And I think, Gorlord, you got a 1-dayer on the 6th of July. That's a couple weeks down the track. And yeah, as you say, it's a 1-dayer. It's probably more of a chance for people to get to grips with the book, which is really awesome. And there's a very different vibe between like a competitive event and just like a funsies 1-dayer. And there are a number of competitive 1-dayers too. So let's not forget those, right? Because there's a lot of cool stuff going on around there. But if there's only a week in there, it probably wouldn't be me. I probably wouldn't be leaning into that one. And gosh, I miss one days. They're so much fun. All right. So without further ado, unless there are any last questions on that one now, again, I don't have a crazy amount of information. I dig that they're talking about expanding a lot of the smaller allegiances like Darkling Covens, Dispossessed. Shit, maybe we're going to see one for Scourge Privateers, Dad Hammer. That'd be fucking rad, right? Scourge Privateers getting their own ones. I think it would be nice to build on that. I think the variety is the spice of life, so I hope that there are a few more like Devoted of Sigmar and things like that. It'd be really cool. First one is the first weekend of August. Yeah, and by the first weekend of August, right, that's that you've had over a month with the book, like a month and a week or something, like 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Plenty of time for shit to be ironed out, or at least for the TOs to be aware of problems or misspellings or poorly worded shit and have an answer for it. I think when you do it the week after, you're expecting so much of the TOs, and they already put a lot of work into doing it. So yeah, that's kind of where I would go with it. Now, next thing, we're quickly going to be looking at some event results that we've had. Now, these are both in Australia, and where for some of them, it's the usual suspects are featuring. For one of them, for both of them rather, there are also kind of a couple of really cool ones in there. So here, so first up, Sydney Slaughter, which is Sydney, one of Sydney's big GT events. It's fucking awesome. Chris Welfare from the Mortally Wounded podcast and James Mabry put it together. It's custom scenarios, which I love, and I'm going to do an interview with Chris probably later this week, so I'll bring that to you next week. I'll just cut it into the show, and we'll have like a cross to me doing an interview. Really excited to be able to do those. But he did the players pack with completely unique scenarios for everyone, and I played it. I think I played in both of the previous Sydney Slaughters, and they were amazing because of it, because it's fun, there's a cool aspect to it, and because you're not sweating over the same missions. It's really, really cool. And taking out Sydney Slaughter, was Korn, which, funnily enough, the same player who won CanCon, which was at the time the world's largest singles Age of Sigmar event, just under 200 people. He won it with his Korn. Then they got a new book, and now he's won Sydney Slaughter with it as well. Bloke named Matt Campbell. We'll actually take a look at his list in a little while. Grand Host and Nagash coming in second. Now, we're not going to take a look at the list of Grand Host and Nagash that came in second, only because it was Nagash, Necromancer, I think maybe one other hero, and then 2 units of Direwolves, a unit of 40 Skeletons, and then a unit of 30 Grimghast Reapers with an extra command point, and the Aether Quartz Brooch for more command points. It was, to be honest, it was a pretty stock standard list. It should do well. It did do well. And it probably got lucky not to come up against something that could handle that. So it's in there. We won't look at it. Stormcast Eternals. Now, it was an Anvils of Helden Hammer, Long Strike, Crossbow, Raptor list. However, we'll have a bit of a look at it because I really like the other stuff in that list. It's a really interesting one. But the top 10 from it's actually super interesting as well. 2 Stormcast, 2 Gits, and then only 1 apiece of Flesh Eater Court's Daughters of Cain and Deepkin. And Host of Nagash. Nurgle sneaking in there, bloke named Jordan Burgess, very talented Age of Sigmar player in Australia who has just converted over from 40k and has had a couple of really good responses. So yeah, it's looking good. Stormcast peeking into the top 3, which is awesome. Oh, Dad Hammer's doing a narrative event now 13th, 14th of July. Anyone who hasn't been to a narrative event, I would say go to it. I'm looking at one over in the States. I'm really excited because they are just so much fun. And Tomb Gloom Spite did well as well. There was a Darkling Covens army at Slaughter that went 4 for 1. Jesus. Blitz, his mate was sad about Korn because he was the number 1 Korn player for a week. Oh God, that's rough. So Legion of Grief did well. And then over in BadgerCon, yes, I actually have the list that we're discussing right now. So first was Daughters of Cain. List doesn't blow any minds, so we're not going to really look at that. It's a list. It's a Daughters of Cain Hagnar list with a Cauldron of Blood and Marathi and a couple of units of 30, and then a couple of flappy ladies that land late in the game to secure objectives. It It's Daughters of Cain doing what Daughters of Cain do. That's cool. If you have the tools, use them. But that doesn't then not to throw shade on anyone, but when an army book and a list that should do well does well, that's not news. That's like, oh, well, also, did you know that the sun came up today? Fuck me, really? Yeah. So that one didn't really blow my mind. Grand Alliance Order, though, a Free Cities army played by Sam Morgan, or Smorgan, as is properly pronounced, coming in second. We'll take a look at that list. And coming in third, Legion of Grief, which for me solidified what the problem with those is going to be. And basically, it's just more Nighthaunt shit with the Grand Host of Nagash command abilities. We'll have a look at it. You'll see exactly why I'm not enthused about what the Legion of Grief is. But Seraphon and Legion of Asblar getting 4th and 5th at BadgerCon. Fucking solid effort. But yeah, it's a biggie. So Dadhammer, yeah, Darkling Covens have gone 4-1 twice. Obviously, they've got some skinny in them, and people just really need to lean into what they're doing. Now, looking at it, right? So we've got let's take a look at Sydney Slaughter first. The first thing that jumps out, right, is that of those top armies, there's no Skaven. Now, that could be because the bloke who I imagine probably would have normally taken Skaven was a TO. I know that Dan Brewer, who is one of Australia's best Age of Sigmar players, particularly he played a lot of Tomb Kings or Desert Legion, and he's played Skaven to death. He is the Skaven master, and we all bow our furry noses to him. He wasn't playing, and I imagine he's usually a top tier player for a lot of these events. Given that he's been given a new battle tome, I would imagine that he would have been up there. He wasn't. No Skaven in the top. Which isn't their fault. They just didn't have any brave generals leading them from the back. Also, not that much in the way Grand Host Nagash, Daughters of Cain, which is kind of cool as well. And only one Flesh Eater Courts. However, I think there was only one Flesh Eater Courts player there. If anyone has seen the stats and knows that I'm wrong, then that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was only one Flesh Eater Courts player there. He still went 4-1. It's insane. But yeah, so sorry, Dan's playing. He's playing with Gloomspite. Blaze Be Mad, you're actually right. So Dan Brewer, this is back before I left Australia. He's just a legend. But I know that he was starting to not get stoked about playing tournaments. He was finding like the vibe and the atmosphere not as much fun, so he's kind of sat out from that to help run tournaments and paint. The other thing that he is actually, he's a really, the fun thing that I always had about playing games with Dan, and we played a lot of games like not at tournaments, like just for fun, is that you learn so much playing against him. He really is, as a hobbyist in general, player, painter, human being, he's the kind of person that like gives freely of his skills and his time. So yeah, I 100% would support him as being one of the world's best hobby human beings. While it's a shame that he stepped away from playing the competitive side, I actually think he's one of the best people in the world to have on the organizational side of them. So yeah, it's while we're having slightly less competition is always never a good thing. It's awesome to see what he's going to be doing. Nightscribe, he is one of the world's best Skaven players. He's a horrifying human being to try and compete with. He was there, but not repping the Skaven. It's a really interesting outcome for Sydney Slaughter. There's a few armies up there that we probably wouldn't particularly see. Now, we're going to look at the Deepkin army as well. So the Deepkin army came 4th at the Sydney Slaughter. And I don't want to give too much away about it because we're going to have a look. It had 4 fucking sharks though. 4 of the Aloplexes, the sharks that no one takes because they're bullshit and no good. It had 4. I actually messaged the bloke who played him today, and he sent me back a message about how much damage they can do in a turn. Jesus fucking Christ, why is everybody doubling down on eels? So I really enjoyed it as a Deepkin army, not relying on eels, and there were eels in it, but obviously the sharks were the heavy hitters, and it's really fucking interesting. Gloomspite Gits as well. We're starting to now see Gloomspite Gits eke their way up to the top, and I called it. Anthony Magro and I, the AOS coach, were chatting a week ago. about the rise of Gloomspite, and I reckon we both agree on the same thing. It's because people had those Gloomspite armies, they've been waiting for it, the book came out, they built it, they painted it, they're starting to get them on the table, and unlike things like Flesh Eater Courts, which are relatively quick to paint the things that are good, or Skaven, where people already had armies, only needed to add a couple of bits and pieces to make them into this kick-ass monster. The Gloomspite Gits very much have been they're a big, slow, they were a broad range, right? We're starting to see them kick ass. I think it's fucking great. Gloomspite Gits are amazing. They're a fun army to play against. They're an interesting army to play. They're not an awful play experience like, say, Flesh Eater Courts or Skaven can be. So loving seeing them coming up towards the top. Blaze Be Mad saying that if we could have coaches allowed at tournaments, he'd be a top pick. But yeah, it is good. The Sharks are fluent in Fithian. I would actually really love that, right? Like, I would love there to be like a teams tournament where each team has a coach too. That'd be fucking awesome. Maybe I'll talk to... the interview that I was supposed to do with Gabe from the Runax Wargaming, I am going to bring you. We are going to either in the next week or so, but maybe that's to talk about like whether there can be coaches at his event, because I'd love to fucking be there. Like like a player comes back between rounds, just sits down in a chair, is like, and you've got your like squeezy bottle full of beer that you just like squeeze, and they're like, and they're like, I can't see, he's all over me. He's all over me out there. And so they're like icing your brows and just like put a towel around your neck, giving you a bit of a shake, some salts under the nose. They're like, mate, you get back in there. You get the fuck back in there and you win that priority. You take that priority role and you fucking destroy it. And you're like, yeah, coach, I got it. And they're like, and then let's not forget that it's actually about capturing that objective. So let's not fuck that up. Okay. Yeah, I got it. You know, like I reckon it'd be so cool. You've got coaches backing up players. That'd be, it'd be fun. I think the more crazy we go, the better it's going to be. Right. So awesome. All right, let's take a look at some of these lists, right? Because that's what we're here to do. Let's actually take a poke at some of the things that I said we're going to take a poke at. Now, we'll start with a couple of the slaughter lists, and then we'll have a look. So first and foremost, without further ado, this is the Corn list played by Matt Campbell, who also won the world's largest singles Age of Sigmar tournament earlier in this year. So not less than 6 months ago. He won the world's largest Age of Sigmar tournament with Khorne pre their new army book. Now they've got the new army book. Just about everything that mattered changed. His army has completely changed, and it's really interesting. Now earlier in this year, and previously I've played him at other tournaments, he's rocking bloodthirst, like one-shotting bloodthirsters, and multiple units of bloodletters, skull reapers as well, blood warriors. So his army has completely changed just about. I think the only familiar thing there is one of the bloodthirsters and the bloodsecrator. Everything else there is new. Now I really dig on this list. I don't know if anyone in the chat is familiar with the new Khorne stuff, but they're not the same as they used to be. Some units, or like the builds that you could still make. They're just nowhere near what they used to be. So yeah, just step back a few people. Coaches at Six Nations. Yeah, like the Six Nations, they've got coaches and stuff like that. And it also means that like it's kind of cool because the coach is looking at it as a team in all of the games. Sorry, this is to step back to the conversation. Like the coaches aren't considering you as a player, they're considering you as a gaming team, and that's really cool because they're just like they'll tell you what to play for and stuff like that. Chess boxing, I didn't know that chess boxing exists, but I'm down into it. Matt Pashby, I feel like you've watched too many boxing movies, but no actual boxing matches. Fun fact, I actually used to box a little bit. However, let's be honest, the way that like between rounds works in a movie is way more interesting. Well, arguably not really, like when it comes down to the actual tactics and reading your opponent. But the conversations and the way it goes, like in Rocky, let's be honest, we all want our Rocky moment. But 100%, yeah, I was not describing. For those of you who don't watch or have anything to do with boxing, the way I was describing things earlier, that is not how it happens. It's a very, very, very different kettle of fish in reality. But let's talk about this list, right? Let's have a quick flick through this list just to have a look at what it did. So first of all, that goddamn battle line of 20 flesh hounds is real awesome, but also speedy, flexible. It gives you a unit that you can leave on an objective and then fling forward after you've captured it and still have the movement not to have wasted a turn. Or units that aren't so important that you can't leave them. They've got multi-wounds per model. They're just, yeah, they're awesome. And 100 points, giving you a Bloodtithe point, not too bad, even if they just get butchered. Endless spells, the Hex, Gorgeous Skulls, you're point for point the best, or Endless Prayer, point for point the best one in the game. Just their ability to shut down magic, damage the casters. But the thing I also like in there is that combination of the Hex, Gorgeous Skulls with the Blood Secretor, and then the Bloodthirster with the trait Mage Eater. Now, when we were talking to Andy last week before, he brought us his army. And the biggest thing a Khorne army can do now is hurt you in your magic phase. It has it's forcing you to reroll casts. And if you cast on an 8, you take mortal wounds. Then it unbinds, or if you fail to cast, you can take mortal wounds, I believe, or if the unbind's an 8. Then you've got the Hex, Gorgeous Skulls as well, fucking up your spells, hurting mages. It's a really, really anti kind of a play. And I like that. The thing I used to love about dwarves in old Warhammer 8th edition was they didn't have a magic phase, but they pretty much could 100% guarantee that neither would you. It was like, look, we don't believe in magic. And that phase always became really tense because your opponent was trying to choose which few of their spells they were going to try and get through, how they were going to try and draw out dispels and things like that, which we still have in dispels and casting. But I love that Khorne basically asks the question, goes like, do you rely on magic? You're not going to be able to get probably 2/3 of your spells off. And I really like that this list sits around there. Loving it. Gorelord saying that you've been punched in the face too many times to actually give a shit about boxing fight movies. Yeah, that's probably fair, to be honest. I think once the time you've been knocked around a little bit, nothing really seems the same. Tyrants of Blood is a real punch up. Yes. Plus, yes. So Tyrants of Blood is the 3 Bloodthirsters. And then I believe the Murder Host is the Flesh Hounds. Yes, I think the Murder Host is just the Flesh Hounds. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, it's a 3-drop list, unless I missed my guess. Got 2 extra command points, which is obviously kind of useful because those Bloodthirsters love to double buff with their command abilities. And the Blood Secretor, Slaughter Priest. I know Skull Taker and the Flesh Hounds, I believe, is the Murder Host. Unless it's the Slaughter Priest. Anyway, might be a 4-drop. But the combos here, the Blood Secretor is obviously for looking at fucking up spell casting. I would almost say primarily. I think now Khorne has changed where it used to be about let's make sure we never run and get loads of extra attacks. It's actually a much more tactical game that plays your opponent in their turn. I think that was for a lot of my games against Khorne. And if you're in the chat and have played Khorne, I'd love to hear your opinion on this, because this is me going deep. But Khorne for me very much felt like that in their turn they were neutered. And so many armies these days affect you in your turn. Khorne now have so much that they can do in your turn, like different things that are suddenly pushing stuff around. And so I love that Khorne feel like they play both turns, as opposed to just being like, this is our turn, it's fucking awesome, and go for your life now, that's all I got. So yeah, I like it. It's a short drop, it's not bad. And yes, Gorelord, 100%, you should summon so much. Yes, thank you for that, Reston. Yes, it also includes the Skull Taker, which is kind of a cool little combo there. And primarily, I don't actually think that any of those the battalions taken there is particularly about the abilities that the battalion gets you. It's 300 points in battalion. Let's remember that this is a 1700 point army with 300 points a battalion. That is expensive, and we've seen battalions go up again and again, but this is not an army that wants to often let your opponent choose. Those extra command abilities, the Crimson Crown for the attacks, the Skull Shard Mantle, I'm not familiar with what it does, and the Amberglaive, obviously, just to fucking wreck people. Amberglaive, I believe, unless I miss my guess, is 1 extra inch of range and 1 extra inch and +1 to hit. You put that on a Bloodthirster of Insensate Rage with his big old killy axe, and suddenly he just goes into absolute beast mode from 3 inches away or 4 inches away, which means he can attack you from outside piling range unless I miss my guess on the range of that axe. And yes, Tyrants, obviously, with the big old chain there. So yeah, I dig it. I like the way that this army plays. I also see why it did well. As much as it looks like it relies on just a big hit, there's a lot of tools in this little toolbox of fun. And so yeah, I think it's an awesome army. I think it's no surprise it did well, given that Matt is a very, very talented player. And he tends to play... I can remember the very first time I ever played Matt was at an event up in Brisbane. I think it was the very first BrizCon Age of Sigmar tournament, maybe the second BrizCon Age of Sigmar tournament. And he was playing a mixed destruction army that balanced out the strengths and weaknesses of Beastclaw Raiders and Iron Jaws in the same list. It was a really great blended list. And it was... like, I remember just playing the game, and by the end of the third turn, I was like, mate, you have played me like a fiddle. Like, you have literally just... and just like I'm like the Pied Piper and danced me off the board. Then I played him again at Sydney Slaughter two years ago, last year, and it was a really, really good game. It was at least a little bit tighter than our previous game. It came down to that last turn. I still 100% was just left thinking like, Christ, mate, you're good at this. So credit to him as a player. Also a really interesting list. And yeah, I just think it's really awesome. I think it's also good to see Khorne taking that kind of a place. Now, next list, we're going to quickly flick through. I just want to look at the Stormcast list. This is Sean H. Now, Anvils of Heldenhammer at a Gairan, which is 100% just to be able to take I believe, the artifact, the Soul Thief artifact. I think that's Gairan, unless it is a Stormcast one, but I'm pretty sure it's Gairan. Okay, so I've got a question. Arcanus Dethicus asking, what's the fastest and best way to kill Morathi? There are 2 best ways to deal with Morathi. The first, let's say 3. The first one is to hit Morathi early, like while she's still little Morathi, so that she can't afford to do it. Now, if you can get 3 wounds on her in her turn, even if she transforms into a combat monster, she has to be concerned about combat because 2 turns could take her out. The other one, and this is the next one, the part 2 way of taking her out, is just to try and hurt her between phases. So endless spells. So when you cast an endless spell, it obviously does its little trick, skidoo. Like, I'll use Everblaze Comet as an example, right? Everblaze Comet comes down, it does its wounds. Where the next time that endless spells activate is between turns, and that isn't limited by the amount of damage that Morathi can take. So Morathi can still take that damage in the gap between turns. So say you hit her with an endless spell, and then win priority, your opponent wins priority and gives it to you, and you get to move that endless spell again. You get to hit her again. Suddenly Morathi is copping a whole lot of wounds, and then if there's a priority phase or whatnot, you get to hurt her again if you've got the next turn or whatnot. So she can real quickly take those wounds. So Morathi isn't as scary. Where she is fucking dangerous though is in 2 very particular places, and the third way of dealing with her is a big part of it. Third way of dealing with her is to ignore her and feed her the shit that she wants until she just like gets full and gets tired and the battle ends. And I think that that's a really hard thing. Some people don't realize, like, sometimes you get to a point where it's like, I'm not killing Morathi, so instead of trying to kill her, I should be trying to limit her. I'm gonna throw some just meaningless little drones at her, give her something to kill, keep her busy, and that's the way to go. Now I have played, I've actually played one player who messed with my brain so hard with Morathi. that it actually threw off a good half of my battle plan, and I won't lie, like there was a little bit of luck and a little bit of late game strategy reimagining to get the win on it. I don't know if she's still in the chat, but Cool Bunny plays Daughters of Cain. And in our game, turn one, she turned Marathi. I gave her turn one, I outdropped her. Turn one, she turned Marathi into Big Marathi, pushed her up the flank, and then just kept her, like, didn't, even by turn three, hadn't committed her to combat. But she was, and it wasn't until turn three that I was like, my God, she's an amazing bully unit. Like, she bullied the entire side of the board because I was constantly concerned about her. Now, the second that Marathi had charged, the units that I had there, she wouldn't have killed in a turn. She would have been stuck there in combat, and I would have been able to, like, feed her a unit a turn to keep her tied up. But not committing her was the biggest thing that fucked with my game plan. So when you're dealing with Marathi, the thing I would say is, like, recognize that sometimes you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, when to walk away, when to run, all of that jazz. You should run. Okay, so we're going. Deathicus talking about going with a Seraphon army, looking at multiple engines. Okay. I would almost say if we're looking at multiple engines, maybe consider Thunderquake instead of Shadow Strike, but the Skinks and the Rippers is a good combo. Personally, I'm a big fan of Pterodons over Rippers. Nightscribe saying that it's Veronica Cool Bunny's laugh that really messes with you. Yeah, it's the equal things terrifying and heartbreaking. I think the appeal for Seraphon is they've got a lot of chaff. Skinks are great chaff, which should reliably be able to tie her up for an extended period of time. Just tag them around. Mortal wounds from the engines. Let's be honest, I would say that if you're playing Seraphon, just put the racist swords in there. Put the shooty stabby swords, because turn one they can flick across the battlefield, do the damage. They're too far ahead that if you take priority or if your opponent gives it to you, they're too far ahead to move. But if they win, they'll have to think about the racist swords hitting Marathi again. Just putting it out there. Racist swords are great. Take the racist swords. To more than actually Blitz being in the chat, you are at the current my highest ranking, I believe, Seraphon player that I know. So yeah, 2 engines is hard to fit into a Thunderquake. Skagrock's shooting and endless spells, yeah, 100%. And it is you one sneaky stabber. You're looking for damage between battle rounds, so endless spells, abilities, things like that. Wanderers, I saw Wanderers one-shot Marathi once because they had the little necklace that turns off all of your abilities. So suddenly Marathi was just standing there with her save, no rerolls, no save after save, no nothing, and then she just got fucking destroyed. It was awesome. So yeah, and if you're interested, just check the General's Handbook. It's one of the Wanderer's artifacts. Now, it's hard to use. You need a character in combat effectively with them, with that artifact, but they basically put a little, like, Hawaiian floral wreath around your neck, and then everything stops working for you for a turn, which means that Marathi just ate shit and died. But we're talking about this Stormcast Eternals army super quickly. Now, this was the Stormcast Eternals army that came third. Now, this is the army that came third over at at Sydney Slaughter. Came third at Sydney Slaughter. And now look, the standard things that we see here, that we've seen a lot, is Anvils of Heldenhammer tied with 9 Vanguard Raptors with long strikes, because they can use a command point to shoot in the hero phase. Super powerful, cool. The thing I really like seeing here is that usually you see that with Lord Arcanum on Griff duty, and then it's just Sequitors in the middle. This army, real interesting combo between the Knight of Xeros, the Lord Aquila, and the Celestin Prime. Lord Relictor gives you another move as well. I just see so much versatility in this army. I think it's really, really awesome. The Vanguard Hunters as the battle line as well. Celestin Prime, you've got a lot that's coming down late in this army, and then a lot that can move around during it. And I think that this army it's very similar to a few others, but I love that it's not just relying on those 9 Vanguard. It's got a lot of other threats between the Paladors, the Prime, the Hunters, even themselves, the Knight of Xeros, buffing them and buffing the Aquila. It's a really interesting list, and I think that usually when I've seen an Anvils of Heldenhammer list, it is like a meat wall of Sequitors guarding those long strike raptors who teleport around the battlefield just dealing damage, or it's the long strike raptors with then a Lord Ordinator and a bunch of Celestial Ballistas, and it's just relying on killing units with the shooting phase. But if you come up against something that's definitely anti-shooting, like say Sylvaneth putting their trees out and shit, it really hamstrings that army. Now this army to me feels a little bit more balanced. It feels like it can deal with everything. Really like the army, really like how it looks, and I think that there's no surprise that it got in third. I think the thing that's surprising is that it wasn't a short charge list that got in third. This for me, and also the thing I like is it's a really on-brand list. You know, you have the Lord Aquila, 3 Vanguard Hunters as your battle line, the Paladors, the 2 units of Ether Wings, because Ether Wings are a great unit, but also they fit the theme. The Knight of Zeros kind of leading the way with the Lanterns, so that they've got all of that, like the rerolls to hit for the shooting, but also it fits the kind of the vibe of the story. Celestin Prime, because the Celestin Prime is just a fucking baller, and the Lord Relictor for teleporting people around in the souls. It's a really cool army. Not only is it a good army, and Sean deserves all props for doing well with it, it's a really interesting army that fits a theme, and so I kind of like that it's a competitive army with a theme. Came in third, deservedly so credit where it's due. But Gorelord picking it up 100%. This is definitely a list that requires a lot of practice, because it's got redundancies. It's got a few redundancies built into it, but it doesn't have that many. And unless you get everything right, I feel like this list would struggle. So yeah, I dug it. Thought it was really cool. And the last one that I want to look at from Sydney Slaughter. Now this was the list that came fourth. As I said, we're not going to look at the list that came, just to flick back super quickly. We've looked at Khorne. We're not going to look at the list that came second, the Grand Host of Nagash. It was Nagash, a couple of Necromancers, I believe, then 2 units of 5 Direwolves, a unit of 40 Skeletons, and a unit of 30 Grimghast Reapers. It was exactly what you expected to be. It did well. It had to be well played to get there, but it's not surprising anyone. It's not blowing any minds. And we're not going to go through it. Now, what I do want to look at right now is 4th place. Now, 4th place was Deepkin, who largely have done well. The 4th place was Deepkin. They've had a really good run. However, it is almost always relying on the back of a lot of eels. And I mean like a fuck ton of eels, like 18 or more eels. As many eels as you can fit in there. Is what it was relying on. And this list did not rely on any of that. Like, seriously, look at this fucking list. Bloke named Ben Spinetti, Ben S, lovely bloke who I have met, but fuck off the first 3/4 of this list and just look at that end there. Ladies and gentlemen in the chat, look at the 4 goddamn units at the end of that list. 4 Archelian Alloplexes. 4 of the big fucking sharks with the big fucking teeth and the big price tag and the big points hike on them that are absolutely, arguably, hot shit in the game compared to Eel. Now, Ben took... I've met him, I knew him back in Sydney before I moved here. And Ben had a very big love of the sharks. He started out with Kharadron Overlords. So he started out with a KO list. And it was actually cool because that was his very first ever army. He built and painted them. They looked really cool. And he went from 0 to 100 with his painting. He picked up the Deepkin, and like overnight his painting went from like that like a very comfortable tournament table painted army to like Jesus, like just tippity top, really high quality. So not only did his painting explode, he decided he loved the sharks. He decided he wanted a lot of them, so he has them. Now, for those who are listening and can't see a screen, it's a Deepkin army. It's a Futhan Enclave, which I believe, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, that's the Enclave that's really good with their mounts. They get reroll 1s to hit in combat for all of the mounts, which this army obviously has a lot of. It's got Volturnus, the High King of the Deep, who is the general, which means there's no command trait for this army, but his command ability is an 18-inch bubble, whereas the regular one is only a 12-inch bubble for an extra attack. So there's a reason to make him that, and he can only use his command ability if he's the general. Eidolon Aspect of the Storm, kind of terrifying. Cloud of Midnight, or Cloak of Midnight, which is a really cool artifact for shutting down a shooting phase. It's effectively a doppelganger cloak for a shooting phase. But the thing about that is that with Deepkin, you have to target the closest unit to you. So the Cloud of Midnight lets you say that this unit can't be chosen as the target of shooting, I believe, until the end of the turn. So you put that aspect of the Storm forward where he has to be targeted, then you pop that. Suddenly, an entire army has to shoot at him but can't target him, which means they lose an entire round of shooting. It really messes those armies up. I would have loved to see this army play against that Stormcast shooting army we just looked at, because I think it would be a really fun, like, kind of Russian roulette, like monkey knife fight, trying to get out who could get it, because the Stormcast could potentially teleport to get out of the... Anyway. Soul Scryer, which is the one that lets you pop up from the sides of the board, which I believe this army would have been doing, and a Tidecaster just to have another Spellcaster in there, though not the General, so not reversing the Tides, for those who are aware. Battle line was 2 units of 10 Namati Thralls, who for 140 points are, I think, an amazing unit. They get better when they're fighting things with 1 wound. They get better when they're fighting things with multiple wounds. They're just better all the time. They're like better homes and gardens. And then 6 Achillean Esharlan Guard. So the eels, obviously, we're seeing some eels, but only 6. And then units. 4 fucking sharks. 4 sharks for a grand total of 2,000 points. So just flicking back, Gnome's Bane asking, is the Prime really that good? Personally, I think the Prime is, or was. And then his updated rules, so the 2 extra attacks and being able to change both the dice on a charge, the Prime has got a lot better. I used to fail so many Prime charges on a 1 and a 2. But the thing about the Prime, though, I think he's started to not be as great as more things are released around his points area, but are better. So he is, I think, for 340 points, the Prime is amazing, or 360, whatever he is. Prime's amazing, really good. However, it's just other things in that same points bracket are starting to be better than him. And so it's hard to kind of justify the Prime compared. But he is really good. Yes, so that's the right one. Nightscribe also pointing out correctly, this list, the Tidecaster isn't the General, meaning that the tides can't be flipped. So High Tide, the most important turn for this army. Now, let's remember, this army has Volturnus, High King of the Deep, and 4 Achillean Alaplexes, who have a really strong bite attack, but they only get 1 attack with it. So this army really relies heavily on High Tide, and High Tide is coming in turn 3 instead of turn 2 for this army. So they're waiting an extra turn for it. However, Ben sent me a message earlier today. I was just talking to him about his list. I'm going to get him on at some point because I really like to talk to him about how he plays Deepkin, because it's very different to a lot of other people out there. And he said, clearly Deepkin need a massive points rise on the Sharks. So he got 5 command abilities off on Volturnus, and the Sharks did 33 damage after saves. So saves were taken and passed. Then the Sharks did 33 damage just with their bites, just with their goddamn mouths. Now, I know it's a not entirely a fair comparison, but that means those 4 Achillean Alaplexes were almost as dangerous as 1 round of combat with an Abhorrent Ghoul King on Zombie Dragon or Terrorgeist. So, that's pretty good. They're almost there. They only need to be able to pile in an attack twice, and then we'd see more of it. It's kind of crazy. I would really like to play against this list. I also, like, the Sharks have so many wounds. I think it's really surprising we haven't seen a game or kind of like this, they played like that. So yeah, it's cool. I'm into it. Blaze Be Mad, just raging at me over, I assume, the basketball result. That's okay. I can't see it right now. I can see your beautiful words, but I can't see your beautiful result. I'm so sorry if that's causing any kind of frustration or friction. Gnome's Bane just realizing that it's 1 unit of 4 sharks, not 4 sharks. Which I guess is like for saving on rerolls and making sure they get into combat. Yeah, it's terrifying. I should confirm for those who can't see the screen, it is 1 unit of 4 sharks in this army. 1 of 4. So 560 points spent on sharks. Which would be, that's kind of tight. That's kind of tight. So now that's the lists that I want to look at from Sydney Slaughter, which was the first one that we're looking at over there. The next one I want to quickly flick through. I want to have a look at BadgerCon. Now we're going to take a look at 2 of these lists. The Daughters of Cain we're not going to have a look at, which I already spoke about before, but just in case you've come late, the list is very standard. It's a Hagnar Daughters of Cain list where Slaughter Queen and Cauldron of Blood, Bloodrack Medusa, Marathi, a couple of 30s of Sisters of Slaughter and Witch Elves, a couple of 10s, and then a couple of Flappy Lady units. And there's a formation, Cauldron Guard or Slaughter Troop, one of them, the 2 formations that everyone takes. So that's the list rundown. If you've played any competitive Warhammer, you've seen it, you know it, you know how it works, because just about every Daughters of Cain player has this list. Don't at me, I know you all do. Let's have a look though. The first one I want to look at real quickly, and I think you'll understand why we're only going to look at it quickly when you see it. I just really quickly want to look at the Legion of Grief list. Now, Legion of Grief was released in Forbidden Power. It's the one that we have only just gotten access to, but it's effectively the one that takes Nighthaunt and gives all of the Nighthaunt stuff the ability to be taken in a Legion and a Gash army. So the rules are similar to like the Mortarch's different versions of rules and stuff like that, which means grave sites, bringing stuff back, and yeah, it's kind of cool. You're doing champs. If you're going to take Volturnus, you better take the sharks as 1 unit to get them. Yeah, Night Scribe, you are right. Volturnus' command ability, best on 1 unit, so you want to have the sharks. And Dadhammer beat it at the SAGT. Ooh, all right, so fair enough. It's got stomped. Ben actually played on the stream at CanCon. I don't know if it was this list or a similar list. I think it was a different list, but his army got crunched because it was Places of Arcane Power, and his heroes got taken off by like a double Star Drake army turn 1. Or turn 2. It was a real shame. Now we're gonna have a quick look at this Legion of Grief list. Now, Legion of Grief is basically just the Nighthaunt version of Legions in a Gash, and as we can see, we'll see why. Now, this came in 3rd, I do believe, unless I missed my guess. I was just looking at the stats, and I've already forgotten it because I'm not the smartest cookie in the bunch. Came in third. Dave C. Again, you got to play well to podium, but a list like this doesn't really surprise me that it did well. Lady Eliana is the general. Now, I should say as well, BadgerCon, and if you're in the chat and you went to BadgerCon, which I know, Joel, if you're still around, you did, BadgerCon used the realm rules, but furthermore the realm spells, in that you could choose, instead of choosing a spell for a spellcaster, or if your army didn't have spells, you could choose a spell from the malign sorcery spells to take for your army. So in this one, Lady Oleana's packing Banishment, that fucked one where you just basically get to be like, yo, no, and shoot an opponent's unit across the board. Dreadblade Harrow with the Aether Quartz Brooch, just to farm those command points. Necromancer with Healing Glow, which I believe is from the realm of... It might be the realm of life. Healing spell, basically. Although maybe that's from the Legion of Grief spells. Don't know. Then 20 Chain Rasps, 40 Chain Rasps, 40 Chain Rasps, 30 Grimghast, 20 Grimghast, and a spare command point. So those of you in the chat, how do we feel about this? Because this list is just fucking ridiculous. And it's for me, it's what's at the moment wrong with death. Grimghast Reapers that can be brought back for 1 command point is fucking ridiculous when they've got an unrendable 4-up armor save. They regularly are re-rolling 1s to their save and then have a 6-up death save. It's silly, it's dumb, and then the Chain Rasps are just the perfect tar pit. It's a filthy list. It's not a fun list to play against for most people. Credit to the bloke playing it. Came in 3rd. That's good play. But Jesus, it's not a fun list to verse. And so that's just kind of that's what I want to chat about on this one. Just so that there's not a lot to say. it's cool. It's cool to see Oleano as the general. It's cool to see some of that stuff, but this list is why people don't love playing against Legion at the moment. It's just Legion of Grief instead of Legion of Sacrament or Legion of Nagash or Legion of whatever the fuck it is. People in the chat not loving it. Hypnocracken kind of not loving it. Blaze Be Mad. Filth. Gnome's Bane kind of dirty. Yes, it's not something that you want to be playing against. So let's get rid of it. Let's purge it. Let's purge it from the screen. Let's go. And we're going to swap it, though, for the list that came in second. Now, this is Sam Morgan or Smorgan's Tempest's Eye list. Unless I missed my guess. I think that's whose list it is. Now, it's a Tempest's Eye free city. So Knight Azeros, who is the general with Strategic Genius, so an extra command point. Then an Ether Chemist with the Ether Quartz Brooch for recycling command points, and a Knight Heraldor, presumably so that to give run and like mortal wounds, but also run and charge or retreat and charge to Stormcast units. Pretty light on heroes, but then 20 Arcanauts with 6 light Skyhooks, 10 Free Guild Archers just for the cheap little screen, and 10 Dwarden Warriors. I'm assuming because they are the cheapest battle line in the game for order at 80 points. 12 Endrin Riggers with a couple of grapnel launchers for slinging across the map, 10 Evocators with Grand Staves, 10 Sequitors with 5 Great Maces, and 200 points under. So with Strategic Genius, this army has 3 extra command points at the start of the game. So 4 at the start of their first turn. Now this is Blaze Be Mad being like, how do you kill 30 Grimghast? I think the bigger question is, how do you kill 30 Grimghast 3 times? And in that list we were looking at before, 50 Grimghast. Unimportant. This list really, really interests me because on paper it looks so cobbled together. However, the bloke playing it knows what he's doing. So for it to have done well, I think is just fucking spectacular. And it really speaks to him as a player. Now, Tempest's Eye, my guess with this army is it's about hitting your opponent with a big turn 1 hit and then rounding it out into the next one. So Tempest's Eye gives everyone, I believe it's +2 movement for the first battle round, or if you can fly, +4, and rerolls to save rolls, or reroll ones to your save, or +1 to your save, something like that, because they're always alert and forewarned and they're ready. So a Knight Heraldor being able to give like the evocators like that quick little double shuffle or something along those lines. The Knight of Zeros comboing with the Arcanaut Company, giving them reroll ones to hit. The Free Guild Archers being able to screen really early in the game. 10 Sequitors is just an awesome, staunch goddamn unit. So is 10 Evocators. They're real useful. I see so much utility in this list. And I think it's great. I think it's interesting too, because we're seeing a little bit more life out of the free cities. 12 Engine Riggers will ruin something's day. Yes, they 100% will. They also, though, I think the thing that's interesting is that this list only has 1 Ether Chemist. Now, for those who aren't aware, usually Ether Chemists let you choose 1 Caradron Overlord's unit and increase one of its attack profiles by 1. A lot of the time you see that with Arcanaut companies so that they can double the amount of light sky shots they're getting and just kill something out dead. Whereas this list, obviously with 1, you'd have to choose between buffing the Endrin Rigger's combat weapon, which is awesome, but only gets 1 attack, with the Arcanaut company's Skyhooks. Still, you'd do it to the one that's going to absolutely fuck someone up in combat and then send them forward and then support with that. But the Endrin Rigger's not very durable. So what I really like in looking at how you would play against this list is this list hits you with something every turn. +4 movement if you can fly. So those Endrin Riggers are movement 16, turn 1. Then the grapnel launchers on a 4-up let them hook onto a monster or a terrain piece and pull themselves closer to that. So 99% of the time, those Endrin Riggers are a 3-inch charge turn 1 if your opponent gives it to you, which is just freaking terrifying. But the thing that I think is really interesting in this list is it can hurt you every turn of the game. So turn 1, those Endrin Riggers and the Skyhooks are a big threat. By the time you get into turn 2, probably those Evocators are getting involved, or if the Sequitors have come off the line, the Sequitors are too, and then by turn 3, the other one of the Sequitors are the Evocators. So even if you're killing a unit a turn, there's still the Arcanaut Company peppering you from the back. this army puts pressure on you every turn of the game and every phase of the game, which is really cool. And then obviously, if all else fails, those 10 dwarf warriors come through and kill everything else because they are dispossessed, which is the superior faction. So yeah, I really like it. Donaldinho, g'day mate, good to see you here. Don't usually see, actually, well, we're getting around the right time, although have you been watching the basketball? Is that why I'm catching you right now, you beautiful, beautiful human? So Blaze Be Mad saying that Smorgan, the player of this list, has been buying a lot of random destruction off Facebook. Interesting. So yeah, this is a really cool list. Yes, Destruction Jesus. It's 100% approved. And also, like, all those extra command points, which in my eyes is 100% for using sixes. And this army has no, the thing is, while it's got stuff to hit you every turn, it has no redundancy if things fail. So I reckon those command points are, for the most part, for Battle Shock on the Arcanaut Company, who'll cop a lot of incoming fire, but mostly for re-rolling charges and run rolls, and giving yourself run rolls of 6, because this army can't afford for fails in charges. So yeah, and I dig it. I think it's rad. Oh, you're in Hong Kong. That's why it works. Okay, nice. So I guess it makes it a bit more easy to keep tabs. I mean, I'm drinking. Unfortunately, I'm not drinking anything that would be local there. I'm drinking spiced rum. But that's okay. We could still have ourselves a little drink. All right. So that was basically all the stuff that I wanted to look at from the results that we've seen over this last weekend, coming out of Australia. At least we've obviously had a few different ones, but just to flag again, our top ones, BadgerCon, unsurprisingly, Daughters of Cain, Legion of Grief were up there. However, also in there was that Tempest's Eye, Grand Alliance Order list, Seraphon, and I don't even fucking know what that last one is. I don't even know why I added it to that side. Legion of as shit something. Sydney Slaughter, another big event. Khorne taking out top spot. A Stormcast Vanguard army, Anvils of Heldenhammer, but all Vanguard except for the Selston Prime. But also featuring quite highly, and Donaldinho, I take it that this will make you quite happy, Gloomspite Gits, getting up there, doing well, and just punching it out. So they're underput. So yeah, okay, fair enough. You wanted to just bring them down by not busting them all over the top, but the Gits they're coming out. I think the armies are finally starting to get finished, and so we're starting to see them. So yeah, the Gits are done well. And that's it for our results wrap up for today. We've obviously got a lot coming in this next week. We're going to be finding out more and more about the General's Handbook. Let me just pop that one back up there again. Don't panic under any circumstances. The new General's Handbook is going to be a beautiful thing. Change is lovely. It's like the way that my hobby baby belly gets bigger every time one of you subscribes for another month, and just our hobby baby grows. That's change. That's development. It's a wonderful thing, and we shouldn't be scared of it. So yeah, let's not be worried going into the General's Handbook. We've got so much love coming our way. And last but not least, today, the last thing that we kind of want to just end on, and this is really, really important. Do not drink the paint. The new contrast paint. Don't drink it. We spoke about it earlier. I'm real concerned that some of you have been here. We spoke about the taste. We spoke about the texture. We spoke about the context. None of those things should ever lead to you drinking the new contrast paints. They are not designed for drinking. They are resin based, which means that they are toxic, or at the very least, real bad for you. Please, please don't drink them. I love you all. Gnomes man, I might not be your real dad, but I'll always be there with a big old hug and the wind beneath your wings to keep you flapping away. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for those who've been here from the start, and for those who came in late, and for those who had to leave in early, or those who were listening at home like 2 weeks after the fact because you just wanted to hear my gravelly voice at the end of the day in a bottle of whiskey, a bottle of rum, I should say. But thank you so much. It's been a wonderful evening. We'll no doubt have some more updates from the new General's Handbook this time next week as we know more, because obviously there's going to be more teasers and things that we're going to find out. So as we find out what those things are, we'll probably have a bit of a chat about them. And that this time next week, I won't have it in the hands, but we'll be getting close. We'll be getting real close, which excites me in a fun way. So yeah, thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful night, afternoon, day, morning, wherever the hell you are in the world. Thanks for being with us, and I'll see you again next week at 7 p.m. local time here. Cheers. Bye.